So welcome everyone to another episode of A County for Old Cars, and today you join me in Bess, my 1971 Mark II Triumph Vitesse, as we hurtle along the A145 in Suffolk, heading for the border town of Beccles, which sits right on the River Waveney. This road we're on is a wonderful driving road. As you can see, it's a Sunday morning, just about 9:30, and we've got some nice twisty bits coming up. One or two little hills as well. But this is one of my favourite routes. Even if you do have to keep your eyes peeled. So I'm hoping that today I'll get to show you a little bit of the town of Beccles itself. And one of the reasons I've picked this town is because of its architecture. It has some wonderful Georgian buildings in it, and many of them are sort of merchants' houses or former merchants' houses. They're converted maltings as well down by the river, and a very sort of pretty marina. But yeah, it's a lovely little town, and it's a sort of last outpost of Suffolk really, before you get to that foreign land that we call Norfolk. One of the advantages of doing this journey today is that the trees are not yet in leaf, and so I think you can get a slightly sort of better view of the countryside as we make our way through. Got a nice bend coming up here, so I'll just drop out of overdrive and then down into third for this one, because these cars have so much torque. We can take that corner in third quite happily. For those of you who follow this channel regularly, you'll know there's been a long hiatus in my filming, and this has sadly been because my professional life has been taking over a lot of my free time during the winter months, and down to a bit of sort of poor organisation on my part, I haven't been able to set aside time at weekends to do this filming, which is something that I love. And it's also meant I haven't really been able to get out and enjoy the cars as much as I'd like to. But I've rejigged my diary, and I'm hoping we'll see a few more of these films during the spring and summer months this year. The car we're in today has also had a little bit of time away from the camera, and again we had a dramatic failure towards the end of last year when the rear transverse leaf spring suddenly snapped. Luckily I was doing about 25 miles an hour down a undulating narrow country lane, and I think the undulations were kind of a last straw really. The spring snapped, and when that happened it broke the top of the differential housing. So David at Anglian Triumph Services in Ditchingham, which is not far from us here, was able not only to source a new spring but a replacement casing for the differential. Something that was particularly annoying because shortly before I acquired this car from Tony, but one thing he did do was to replace the differential, so I've got a perfect differential but with a snapped housing. Completely useless. So we've managed to transplant the gears into the new housing. David's fitted a new transverse spring, and we're back on the road. On the road, one of the things I do notice is the ride is much more compliant now with the new spring, and the car sits a little bit higher at the back. I haven't really determined whether that's affected the handling or not, but this is a car which is always cornered like it's on rails, and very different to my 1967 2 litre, which doesn't have the Rotoflex suspension that this one has. We're just coming into Beccles at the moment, and what I plan to do is to do a little bit of a drive through the town and then perhaps get out of the car and show you a little bit of the sort of the architectural features that I particularly enjoy here. So I'm hoping as we come through you're getting a windscreen view of the town centre. A lot of the buildings that we see at this point are from the 19th century, but as we get deeper into the town you start to see houses from the late 18th century, and particularly the bigger merchant houses that we're going to see. A lot of them have these wonderful Dutch gables, and the Dutch had a lot of architectural influence in East Anglia during the 1700s. Of course, a lot of Dutch engineers were brought in to drain the Norfolk and Cambridge fens, using wind power to do that, and we've seen evidence of some of their work both in my videos in the Cambridgeshire fens and also at Reedham, which was a film I did a couple of years ago, where we actually took this very car across the river on the chain ferry. But Beccles is a thriving town, lots of independent shops, there's an active market here, and it's particularly conveniently located for access to Norwich, so easily commutable. But as you can see ahead of us, we've got an example of Georgian architecture in St. Peter's House, and then as we come up into the town centre, you'll notice that we've got the church, which has a separate bell tower, and so the church is off to our right and the bell tower straight ahead of us, and that's largely to do with the soil conditions and the fact that it was not possible to build the tower for the church where they might have done, because the soil wouldn't have taken the weight of the building, so it had to be done separately. So some of the houses you see with these brick facades are actually timber framed behind, so there are one or two that we're looking at which could be as early as the sort of 1600s, but again, this sort of mellow red brickwork is really quite spectacular. And again, we've got sort of the use of knapped flint in some of these buildings, including the old school that we went past there. Yes, you'll see the old schoolhouse now on my left, which has got this wonderful knapped flint facade and these Gothic arched windows and dormers. The river, which we will have a look at in a second, is just down here. On the left, and you can see there's a very active marina, and then we're looking out onto the sort of the old marshes, which again, you know, would have been drained sometime sort of 200 years ago. So again, many of these sort of bigger houses that we're going to see in the centre would have been merchants' houses. Again, this would have been an important inland port, so taking goods from the seaport of Lowestoft and then bringing them inland, also taking grain like barley and wheat from the farms and then out to maltings and mills, and then for sort of transportation in coastal shipping. There's a wonderful Art Deco building to the left, which is the old cinema, latterly used as a restaurant, but I think that's either closed or changed hands. As we come down Siddle Street here, we can see sort of evidence now of timber framed buildings, whitewash or colour wash elevations. There's some wonderful Dutch gables. And then these houses with parapet walls here, so sort of facades that hide the old oak frame buildings behind. And we're now sort of coming down into the area of the sort of granaries and maltings, which is really what this town was all about. So what I think we'll do now is just to have a walk along the banks of the river, and I'll be able to show you a little bit of Beccles and this very pretty inland port, and yeah, let's see what we can find. And you can just see on the far side of a river what are now these sort of luxury townhouses, flats of the old maltings and granaries. And so the river, which is now literally a haven for cruising and recreation, would once have been frantic and or frenetic, I should say, with barges coming all the way from Lowestoft, and Again, it's a sort of part of Suffolk history which is almost forgotten these days. You know, we see this sort of tranquil space now. Got the swans over on the other side. Let's see if I can focus in on them. But you know, this really would have been teeming with carts and horses. And I've talked in one or two of my other films about the link between the sea and farming in East Anglia, but this is a real example of an inland port. Morning.
Morning.
Be interesting to think whether the local economy has almost as much money in modern terms from tourism and things like boating than it did from the days of malting barley. Got an example just over here. Again, I'll try and zoom in, of one of the old barges I was talking about. Yeah. In case you're wondering what these steel X's and inverted V's are on the side of the buildings, these are actually tie rods, and so they're made of steel or iron, and they're literally, as the name suggests, long rods that run from one wall of the building to the other to prevent the building from spreading, so to prevent the walls from being pushed out by the weight of the roof above. And as you can see with the sort of wide span roofs, there's always a danger that the weight of a roof will push the top of the wall out, and so you get what's known as thrust or roof spread. I just wanted to share this with you. Those of us of a certain vintage, Unipart was the place to go to for British car parts. It's a lovely little garage here. And have a look at this Dutch gable here, Smith and East corn and coal merchants. Some dealers in malts and hops of the best quality, beans, peas, oats and pollard cinders. The 18th century didn't have BMWs or Audis, You can see here a better sense of the maltings that exist, and again the ability to bring carts with grain or corn down through the streets, and then to be able to either load them onto barges at the back, or indeed bring the barges themselves with the grain into the maltings before shipping it off again to breweries. But this is what Victorian industry looks like. For me, there's always something rather sad about old boats, and I was thinking the other day, looking at what's happened to the SS United States, which, for those of you who don't know, the United States was the most advanced of the passenger liners, one of the fastest actually. I think I'm right in saying it had 4 screws, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ship, which for the last sort of 40 years has been abandoned pretty much in Philadelphia. There have been various attempts to try to rescue the ship, turn it into a museum ship, but none of these have actually worked, and it's now been decided that it's going to be sunk as an artificial reef. And there are images recently on YouTube and on television of the wonderful ocean liner being towed for its sort of last journey before they strip out any of the sort of toxic materials in the vessel and then sink it as an artificial reef. I'm sure it'll make a wonderful artificial reef, but it seems so sad to see this sort of wonderful piece of engineering and beautiful design just unceremoniously sort of forgotten and dumped. And in some ways, for me, it sort of felt a little bit like a kind of a metaphor for the state of our democracy generally, and I guess it's just a reminder that nothing stays the same and that things change. You know, powers shift globally, and people change, and it seems our societal and political values also change, just as they have in little towns like Beccles. And you know, we can sort of see how it's easy to mourn the passing of industry in places like Suffolk and Norfolk, but then with luck they become replaced by the sort of peace and leisure that we see today. You just hear these bells playing, and if I turn the camera around in a second, you can see across the river there. I'll sort of zoom in a little bit. We've got the backs of these wonderful merchants' houses. We're not looking down on the sort of money-making enterprises that built them, but now looking down on families coming for walks on Sunday mornings, and people on holiday enjoying the beauty of these inland waterways. And yeah, we're really lucky. I think for me, the answer is that in times of uncertainty, it's important to be present. And by that I mean just to enjoy the moment and to really treasure what we have while we still have it. And I think on a morning like today, one of the first mornings of spring in Suffolk, it's a good time just to remind ourselves of really how precious this part of the world is, and generally how lucky we are to be able to enjoy it. Gosh, those bells are really quite something. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm hoping my next video will be along in the next couple of weeks, so there won't be the sort of hiatus that we've had between this one and the previous video. It's really good to be back. Take care.